Hi, welcome back to Music Between the Numbers. This is episode 7. My name is Andy Jaski, and I'm a singer, songwriter, and economist. And I like to take a look at the quantitative side, or the measurable side, of how music has changed over time. In the last episode, I showed the development of my music old school score, which tells just how old school or new school a pop song is based on a variety of metrics. Today, I'm going to take that score and apply it to the 10 songs that were nominated for the Grammy Song of the Year. So it's a little easier to do this via a PowerPoint because we can look at charts and whatnot. So let's go to that now. Once again, I had a bit of inspiration from Rick Beato, who has a YouTube video where he plays parts and reviews each of the Grammy-nominated songs. Although he didn't assign an actual letter grade to each song, you can definitely figure out which ones he likes more and less and kind of infer a letter grade. So I'll use that inferred letter grade and see just how well it aligns or correlates with a song being old school or new school. First, we'll review a bit about the score, the Music Old School Score, or MOS. Then we'll discuss a little about the Grammys and show the scores of each of the songs. Next, we'll correlate the score with the inferred grade from Rick Beato, and finally, I'll offer my own thoughts on the songs and their scores and what it may mean for popular music going forward. So let's review the score. We weight and blend together 10 Spotify features, including loudness, acousticness, speechiness, danceability, energy, and other factors to get an overall score for each song that tells us how old school or new school a song is. Here are graphs of how the score changed by year and then by decade for the annual Top 10 Billboard hits. If you want to know more details, please watch the prior episode, and if you want even more about the underlying sauce, you can dig into all 6 of the prior episodes. I also have a version of the score that includes chord counts for the song. Since we only have 10 songs here, we'll create both versions, MOS 1 with chord counts, plus Spotify metrics, and MOS 2 with only Spotify metrics. Let's also go over the scale of the score and how it classifies songs. The score can range from 0 to 100, but for practical purposes runs from about 15 to 85, where the highest scores are the most old school and the lowest scores are the most new school. On a fairly strict scale, 35 would be the cutoff for new school and 60 would be the cutoff for old school, meaning 60 and above are definitely old school and 35 and below are definitely new school. If you have to pick one score to say old versus new, it's at a score of 41. So the further above 41, the more old school a song is, and the further below 41, the more new school a song is. So what are the songs that were nominated for Song of the Year by the Grammys? Here they are in alphabetical order by song title. So I won't go through the artists, you can read those here, but the songs are A Beautiful Noise, Bad Habits, Driver's License, Fight for You, Happier Than Ever, Kiss Me More, Leave the Door Open, Montero, Peaches, and Right on Time. This year, the Grammys have gone up to 10 songs nominated for Song of the Year, up from 5 songs in 2018 and all years prior, and up from 8 songs for the last 3 years. So why is that? Has music gotten so much better that we just can't limit it to 5? Well, the Oscars went from 5 to 8 for Best Picture way back in 2009. And the main reason, I think, was to get a slightly broader audience watching in this media-drenched age. A secondary reason might be to make sure there is a little broader representation both of minorities and types of films. At least that might have been with the Oscars, and here it might be types of music. So the Grammys, probably have similar reasons. And given that viewership for the Grammys fell by a whopping 53% last year over the prior year, they have really strong motivation to try to attract as large an audience as possible. Now, I have to be honest, I may have watched maybe 5 minutes of the Grammys once when I was 15 years old or something like that, but I have really never watched them as an adult for any length of time at all. I have watched the Oscars some years, but not so much lately. I think awards shows in general appeal to a younger crowd, and the Grammys are probably the youngest of all. So the nominations and the expansion of the number of nominations probably are to try to avoid at least another massive drop-off in viewership and perhaps appeal to a broader variety of viewers. So let's see the scores for each of the songs and rank order them by how old school or new school the songs are. And my first thought in looking at that is, wow, that's a pretty old school list. On Moss 1, with chord counts considered in the score, there are 5 old school songs, 1 neutral, and 4 new school songs. And on Moss 2, without chord counts considered, there are 8 old school, 1 neutral, and only 1 new school song. So it seems like the Grammys went pretty old school with the nominees. Even a bit more surprising, only 1 song, Bad Habits by Ed Sheeran, is definitively new school, while either 3 or 4 songs, depending on the measure, are definitely old school. The average of these songs is over 52, which is higher than the average of my own album from last year that I called New Music for Old Souls. So there is definitely an old school flavor to this list of nominees. Now, let's add to this list my interpretation of the Rick Beato evaluations to this and see what grades the songs get from an expert. And let's keep in mind here that the grades are more around how do these rate for Song of the Year versus how do these rate versus all pop music. The grades here are held to a pretty high standard, probably higher than that of just a typical pop or rock song. So not surprisingly, the old school songs tend to get higher grades than the new school ones. So if you look at the 2 different scores, the simple correlation coefficient is either 0.7 or 0.78, and the R squared, which explains how much of the variance of one thing is explained by the variance of another, is between 0.5 and a little over 0.6. So what we're saying here is that 50 to 60% of the grades given to this song or the evaluation is based on whether it's new school or old school in some sense. So that actually makes some sense to me as I listen on my own, because I feel like about half of what I am listening for is characteristics of songs that make them more old school. More complex songs, less speechiness, and better singing, and more acoustic instruments, and a little less sad and angry. Those are things that I like to hear in songs, and obviously those are things that Rick Beato probably likes to hear in songs too. And looking at the Justin Bieber, Ed Sheeran, and Lil Nas X songs, it may be that the Grammy folks want to make sure that certain popular artists get a nomination simply to make certain that their fans are as enticed as possible to watch the show. And let's face it, if you're a boomer like me, you may know a bit about who some of these people are, but others you have never heard of. I probably know more than the average boomer, probably quite a bit more than average, but I still had not heard of two of these people. So, my own opinion, I'd have to say A Beautiful Noise is indeed the best song, both musically and lyrically. So, not surprisingly, I'm pretty much in agreement with Rick Beato. And I mean, the music for Justin Bieber's song, which, by the way, it took 11 people to write. It's sort of okay or good for a workout or something, but the lyrics are just awful and a waste of time. And Ed Sheeran has written some really excellent songs, but since Shape of You was so popular, it seems like he decided he just could make a lot of money writing simplistic dance tunes, so he made another one here, and it was very popular as well, so that's kind of what you get. So you get this pretty poor Ed Sheeran song on the list, and those two are on there, I think, just to try to get their fans to watch the show, and that might be true of Lil Nas X as well. And Rick critiques Bruno Mars and Silk Sonic as trying to emulate Earth, Wind, and Fire a bit too much. But I think, hey, if you can write and perform a song like Earth, Wind, and Fire, that's just awesome. So I'm all in on Bruno Mars and Silk Sonic, which I think is the second best on the list. So what do we take from all of this? Well, I think the Grammys are trying to help shape music a bit by rewarding some artists who are more musically accomplished in nature, and they're still trying to allow some more popular artists to populate their lists because, after all, they are trying to put on a show and bring in some advertising dollars. So they're trying to, provide a little bit of a service by identifying those artists and those songs that are a little more complex and lasting and more musical and more musically accomplished, while still trying to appeal to a broad audience and also assure that they have good representation across a diverse group of artists. So that's the way I would tend to look at this and evaluate their list and why they expanded it and why they put these particular songs on that list. But it's a pretty old school list in nature for at least, several of the songs. So to me, that's a very good thing. And I think it shows a little bit of a trend back in popular music toward being a little bit more old school in nature. So there you have it. It does look like the Grammys are trying to go a little bit old school in the songs they have up for Song of the Year. So maybe this is my big chance. I have an EP coming out in the next couple of months that will have 4 songs on it, and 2 of those are going to be cover songs. One from the 60s and one from the 70s, and then I'll have a couple of other songs on that are pretty old school as well. So I hope you'll go to andyjaskimusic.com and sign up for the mailing list, and then I can let you know when those are available. So this is Andy Jaski signing off for now, saying take care and happy listening.